Good afternoon. I'm Quan Tracy Cherry, and I'm here with,
Tavish Carduff.
and we're representing Our Raw Material, and this is Intention Week. What's the question for Intention Week?
The question is, name 3 things that are on your to-do list that you've said that you want to do, but you haven't done yet, or thought that you wanted to do. You didn't have to say it out loud. But what are 3 things that you've wanted to do and haven't done yet? It could be fun or work or whatever, but let's just identify them and hear what they are.
And you can leave them in the comment section here, or you can go to our YouTube channel, Our Raw Material. Instagram is Our Raw Material, and then the website is www.ourrawmaterial.com.
We'll be right back. Welcome. I am Tavish. This is Quan. And we want to kind of just dig right in and see how our intentions are actually mostly rooted in our feelings and in our emotions.
Mm-hmm.
When we take a look at from that standpoint, it's a different perspective.
Yes, and how I like to think of or feel that intentions are like creating the wave of how we manifest and how we feel and recognize the synchronicities, the so-called coincidences that our soul shows us. So I just this week can just be. I get real charged up in this week.
It is.
Yeah.
And it depends where your focus is. Mm-hmm. Because if your intentions are on intention, then you are doing that space. You're really working at a manifesting space. But if you're just beginning to identify intentions for the first time, you might notice that all of your energy goes to a place that you don't want it at all. And your intentions are actually supporting something contrary to what you want. And so that's why Intention Week, I think, is so cool, is because we really get to pick apart and see where our thoughts and our feelings direct how our life goes. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's almost worth repeating because it's so powerful. But when we see our own emotions and our own things that we put out in the world with our thoughts and desires, mm-hmm. that is the space where we either connect to it and make it happen, or we look at all the reasons why it can't happen, or we don't deserve it, or something along those lines. So we are just walking on that balance beam, making a choice. Is this intention, am I going to follow this intention, or am I just going to put it out there and judge myself later because I haven't met it? Mm-hmm. There are so many ways that we approach our intentions.
Mm-hmm. And it's so easy, I think, to be flippant about them, too. It's just like, I'll do this, I'll do it later, or whatever. But when you start to recognize, and you have it here about narrowing down your intentions, what's manageable, right? Because, again, this is not to berate or to beat you up. This is about the soul giving us the energy and the rootedness to have compassion for ourselves and for others, and to play around with manifestation and to
set yourself up.
Yeah,
your intentions set you up.
Yeah.
For the thing, for how everything's going to go. Mm-hmm. I mean, they really do just set the stage. So if you're a person who follows through with intentions, and again, I should back up and really say, we have so many more intentions than we can possibly follow through with. So that's one kind of truth bomb, if you will, that we can't put an expectation on every intention that we have. We're going to have to weed through them a little bit and pick out the ones that really line up to the things we want specifically. Because all of our intentions include so many things that just there isn't time in the world to do them all. Mm-hmm. If we're really, doing it up. Mm-hmm. If you're a person who really doesn't want anything, then we got to look at where does the lack of intention come from. If you can't think of anything you want, if you're really having a hard time just connecting to being here, and even the intention to brush your teeth can't show up, because then you're in some negative power space, mm-hmm. negative energy kind of bogging you down, then those intentions can seem so far off. Something that's so simple and automatic to one person can all of a sudden become very challenging to another. And I mentioned brushing your teeth again because it's a big one. That one specifically ties to so many things about how we feel about ourselves. Our mouth, how we talk, whether we keep it open, what we think of our teeth, the shape of our teeth, our breath, so many things are tied to that toothbrushing moment, and how we view our voice and how we project and how it projects and how it gets heard, and how we value ourselves, how we value our own body. So our intentions at the most base level determine how we express.
And it's an emotional week. So it goes with emotions and it goes with mentors. So just basic care, hygiene, what was taught, what was modeled, in childhood, and how, and even look at the pandemic, how did it shift even with that, and like all things, I feel with our raw material, I keep hearing the phrase baby steps. It's important to start off with manageable intentions, because it can sound really lofty, right? But if you just start off with, like you said, brushing your teeth, or
awareing, simple awareing.
Yep, awareing. Yep, forget about that word sometimes.
It's his word.
But it just but it's just a week that compassion. That because you even have it here where it's not about berating yourself about not doing something that you intended to do. This is not the purpose of our raw material.
It's to get out from under any feelings like that.
Yeah, and no guilt and no shame. It's like, because if the process to get is to be awareing, to get to wholeness is about allowing and accepting all of it. The good, the bad, and the ugly. The intentions that you didn't follow through on versus the ones that you do follow through on. And I think it's important to give yourself. It's not resting on your laurels, but definitely giving yourself some laurels for what you have done well. In acknowledging that in the small things that, like, say for instance, you go into the grocery store and there's a long line, and instead of getting upset or looking for another line that's shorter, you just stay in the line and you breathe through it. You just go, I can be patient. It doesn't, and have the intention.
Even if I'm in a hurry.
Even if you're in a hurry. And I use the grocery store as an example because you can just make a simple intention of going through the grocery store without rushing or without getting yourself upset if you get out to your car and realize, I meant to buy this. You just that happens a lot. That old chestnut. But and if you start to have compassion for yourself in those little ways, you'll be amazed how it'll happen in bigger instances where your body will already be relaxed into acceptance and allowing, and then the bigger stuff you accept and allow. Does that make sense?
Very much. Yeah. I was even, while you were talking about the line, I was thinking, just running yourself through an exercise where you realize you're going to be late, the line's too long, you hadn't quite given yourself enough time, and you weren't ready for a hiccup.
Yeah.
So you're going to stand there and be frustrated or whatever, and instead you pick up the ideal of, okay, so I'm late. What does that look like? How do I use it to my advantage? How do I thank whoever's waiting on me for their patience?
Yep.
And how do I proceed with grace in a situation where I'm nervous, tripped up, and stressed before I'm supposed to be somewhere? So intention really comes back to doing the best we can with the circumstances in front of us, not insisting that the circumstances be the way we want them to be, or expecting them to be the way that we want them to be. So back to awareing, just a simple identification of what we want, why we want it, what it looks like when we get it, and what it looks like when we don't get it.
And then with the being in the line, sometimes I just look around and decide, well, maybe I can strike up a conversation here, or I can look around the store and think about what I have not noticed if I had just gone through the line, quickly or whatever. So there are different ways in which you can pause and breathe and see parts of your world that you wouldn't have seen.
I need stuff like that because I will. I mean, I'm just realizing this as you say it, but if I'm in the line too long, I will snap into something that makes me buy one of those impulse things. And depending on my mood, it could be dental floss or candy.
Yeah.
It could be.
Yeah, like certainly when you go to World's Market and all these stores, they have the lines where they have all these impulse buys as you're waiting. And there's a part of me that almost, I do the opposite intention of, no, not looking at any of this.
So if you have that intention going in, it's really easy to not do it.
Yep.
Otherwise, you're standing there weighing it, and you're on the verge of an emotional decision of some sort. And I'm just realizing that without an intention in the line, we don't manage the line as well.
Yep.
Without intention, we don't manage anything as well, and we definitely don't have any perspective around our expectations. I mean, how often do we think of something that we want to do, and we don't line up the resources or the energy behind it, so we're not going to align with the intention, but later on we will judge ourselves for not doing it, and we will, or even worse, someone else. Someone else said they were going to do something and they didn't follow through. We might not look at what happened in their day, and we might just judge the fact that they didn't get what they said done, even though there's 50 things on our list we didn't get done.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
I resemble that remark often. But now it comes up and knocks me on the head. If I go into judgment like that, the universe figures out a way to say, hey, look at you being all judgy. I'm the queen. I mean, along with probably several other people. But I am among the queens of the exaggerated always and never, and I do it 1,000,000 times a day. Mm-hmm. There's another one.
Yep.
And even though I put intentions about not doing that, it's so hardwired into my vernacular that I almost don't recognize it. So at this point, I'm asking the universe to give me a sign when I do it, and I kind of laugh and hear it every once in a while, unless I'm on a roll. It's so natural in my speech. It's so natural.
But that's why I think you can start to have fun with the energies. That you start to recognize and see yourself with a level of lightness. Doesn't mean that you don't still, challenge yourself, but you just breathe through it in a way that I know before this practice I didn't. I knew there was a heaviness or a seriousness even, and because intention can sound serious. I'm setting intention. Yeah, but intention is also, you can intend to be light. You can intend to be detached. You can intend to be more self-monitoring. I mean, there are so many, as you said, oh God, there's so many intentions. But joy.
You also strike a good point, which is we all have very different intentions. There are so many. And so when we interpret a situation based on our own intentions, and somebody else hurts our feelings or makes us upset or bothers us, we don't like what they did, if we don't consider their intentions, we're going to just stay in our emotionally tripped up space. And when we get to what their intentions were, then that's really the space where we decide whether we're going to continue with our emotion or not. Because we get stirred up about how something feels, and then we need to learn something. We need to learn about intention, so that does that feeling land or does that feeling go somewhere else? And even if the intention was negative towards us, we are going to set some intentions about how we receive negativity, and we're going to be prepared to
and receive it, and whether we let it stay in our bodies or not. I mean, you can see the negativity, you can feel it, and you can make a choice through an intention that you're going to have compassion for your reaction, you're going to have a compassion for the other individual, and you just move forward. Because these last 4 weeks are really about what world are we interested in creating together. Because none of this is happening in a vacuum. We don't want to make even the presumption that this is all about just self-monitoring. It's about becoming these whole, functioning, loving beings. And the more we put that out into the world, the more the world reflects it back. It's like attracts like. These are not laws or metaphysics that either of us created. This is
the blending of the laws of man and the laws of the universe, and it's the sweet spot.
Huzzah! Yes, the sweet spot. Mm-hmm.
It's a sweet spot of intention where intention and emotion and allowing and awareing all meet.
Mm-hmm.
Because as we get to those last 4 weeks, they're really about how we work together to make the things that we want happen. So even in communication, how we work together to get to the other side of a conversation is an intention versus how do we trip up on words. And I'll go back to the always and never. When somebody points that out to me, I used to get caught in well, you know what I mean, and I had to go explain what I meant, and now I laugh at it. And I might make an extra joke about it, or I at least give a wink that lets the other person know that I know I'm exaggerating what I'm saying. And maybe I'm exaggerating for emphasis, or maybe I'm exaggerating because it's just habit. And it's a habit I'm trying to break. But intention goes a long way when we are saying things that wind up hurting someone else.
No doubt. And it also goes a long way in terms of week 6 and how we listen or don't listen to other people. If we make the intention in a conversation to really be receptive to the other person's communication, it's felt. Even if we miss some of the details of what the story is about.
Any final advice you have for anyone around intention?
Just remember to have fun with it. Just don't allow the word to get you bogged down into some gravity, seriousness. And baby steps.
I also like to throw out there for this one, this is my secondary recommendation to write it down. I mean, mentors and values and ideals, I kind of insist. I would really like you to do it. Intention is just helpful. So if you're a person that likes making lists or you're willing to make a list, writing it down just helps you see it, helps you visualize it, helps you keep it there. And there are all sorts of techniques out there about intention setting. And we at Ourrawmaterial split it up into 2 weeks with resources in between so that we identify things we want and then we, in the next set, figure out how to get them. But it's the identifying and awareing around the things that we want that really is the stuff of intention week. So in these other practices, when they tell you how to set intentions, there's a lot about write things down as if they've already happened and then walk away from it and let the universe decide when is going to offer that intention to you. And those are all in the lines of creating your own reality and making things be the way you want them to be in the world. There's a lot tied to that, and in Ourrawmaterial, we know that you've got to connect a lot of pillars to get that kind of magic working, but it's possible. And not only is it possible, it's just right around the corner.
Yes.
I mean, it's palpable and it's right there. So let's just keep our eye on that prize, keep our intentional focus where we want it, and if something doesn't fall under our intention, apologize.
Yep. Simple.
Super easy.
So 3 things that you want to do. Thanks.
We'll see you next week for
resources.
There we go.